A very good evening to you all. Thank you so much for joining the call this evening. It is an honor and indeed a privilege to end the week with all of you. My name is Catherine Musakali, and I'm the chair of the Women on Boards Network here in Kenya. A special welcome to our sisters and brothers from across the borders of Kenya. We do have guests today joining us all the way from Tanzania, the UK, Liberia, Rwanda, Uganda, and Sierra Leone. A big virtual shout out to all of them. The Women on Boards Network here in Kenya has one main goal, and that is to increase the women representation on boards by building and maintaining an active pipeline of experienced, highly intelligent, and qualified next generation leaders capable of adding value to any board that they join. And indeed, research and studies across the world have shown that companies that have diverse boards end up outperforming their peers that have poor diversity. And as a result of this, as Women on Boards Network, we run a number of programs directly and also have many partnerships with a view to ensuring that our members are doing a great job on the boards on which they serve. And as we do that, we also make sure that we are also cultivating and building a rich pipeline of potential board members. And so if you have not yet become a member of the Women on Boards Network, please do reach out to us, and you'll find our contacts on our website, which is www.womenonboardskenya.co.ke. And of course, we shall help you navigate the process of registration. So one of the things that COVID-19 has shown us is that there is an opportunity to reach out across the borders for expertise. And so this evening, I am pleased and honored and grateful that my big sister, Zuhura Muro, has accepted to be our speaker. I have met and engaged Zuhura many times, and I can tell you that you will love hearing from her. Our webinar this evening will expound on how we can cultivate resilience to navigate the current economic and social situation. And I do encourage each one of us to participate in this webinar and share ideas with each other. Allow me to stop there, but before I do, let me introduce our moderator this evening, who is none other than Ms. Faith Nkatha, who will then introduce the chief guest. Faith is one of the leading women in fintech in the region, and she has over 10 years of experience in this space. She currently works for Oracle Corporation, leading their digital transformation efforts for the public sector. She has an impressive background that cuts across retail and corporate banking with a good mix of skills in various areas. She holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree in marketing and a master's degree in psychology. And she is also a licensed therapist thereof. In her spare time, you will find Faith speaking and mentoring women and young people in various platforms. This indeed is her passion. Faith is the founder and chief creative officer of Faithology, an organization that gives 360-degree styling experience, working on women from inside out, i.e. on who they really are, their confidence, their social and media brand, and then of course their wardrobe on the outside. And you will see that for yourself when she comes on the screen. She also sits on the Women on Boards Network Board, and she chairs the Finance and Partnerships Committee. She's a trainer and mentor of the Presidential Digital Talent Program and volunteers with the M-Pesa Foundation Academy as well. This year, I'm pleased to announce that she got nominated to join the Swedish Institute Management Program team, representing, listen to this, representing not Kenya, but representing Africa. Faith, over to you.
Gosh, Catherine, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm totally humbled. You know, in the Kenyan culture, someone like you should not be introducing me, but I am grateful. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all set with your cups of tea. I was reading something the other day, and someone was explaining etiquette on Zoom calls. So they were saying you can have a cup of tea or coffee or water, but you shouldn't eat during Zoom calls. So that's just a tip as we get started today. This is the third board talk that we are having, a board event, as they're calling them, the virtual event. And we are so excited to have you. Thank you very much for taking time. And without much further ado, I'd love to introduce Zuhura. I was just reviewing her bio. I'm like, wow, she's just so ideal to be able to be the one speaking to us today. Network, you know, to talk about Insurance Tanzania. She also serves as Board of Trustees of National Social Security Fund in Tanzania. She's Vice Chairperson of Association of Tanzania Employers. Wow, the list is endless. Guys, this is the person we need to mentor and coach us, and I'm glad that she's the one speaking to us today. So put on your earphones if you think your kids will interrupt, and make sure you have your coffee close so you don't have to walk away. And let's just welcome with a round of applause, Miss Zuhura Muro. Karibu sana.
I wanted to go a bit down.
Zuhura, have you unmuted?
Oh my God.
Yes,
can you
we
hear
can
me
hear
now?
you now.
Okay,
Yes,
good afternoon. Good afternoon, East African. Thank you very much for your introduction, and I'm very happy to be part of this conversation today. And what a great topic that you have chosen for this particular period that we are going through. From Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and the other countries that you have joined us, we are very pleased to have you, and I hope the session that we are going to have today will be able to shed light on the kind of responsibility that board directors carry. It is interesting because this session is coming while when you are talking about cultivating resilience to navigate this pandemic. I have a personal story because I'm actually navigating now. I have a business, and that business has been completely turned upside down. So what next? Either I stop, I don't do anything, I become self-pity, and nothing happens, or I move. So when we are talking about this topic, it is very interesting because it is very close to me. But also if I look at the journey that I have covered over the years, serving in a number of boards, some of the boards I have left some years ago, but the topic of resilience, not only during the crisis like this one, but we know also when you join some of the boards, sometimes you may find some characters, some kind of dynamic that calls for your resilience. And then that's when you reach deep into your pocket, if it is not pocket, deep inside yourself, to look for that resilience for you to be able to survive. So this is a very interesting topic, and I hope you'll be able to enjoy it. I'm approaching this topic from our series that are ongoing. For some of you, you have heard about Resilient East Africa Challenge, which we are running as emotional intelligence practitioners in East Africa. So I have requested the women on board to allow me to run it from that perspective because it is part of those series. So this webinar is going to be, I'll be presenting, but from time to time, I'll stop to ask if you have any question, but I have a very capable moderator who is going to assist us in terms of making sure that we are moving in the right pace. I'll try as much as possible to use about 30 to 40 minutes, but in between we are going to have some breaks. I want it to be really a conversation. And I'm very excited because women on board have panelists who are going to really complement what I'm going to share with you this evening. And I hope by the end of the day, I'll make a very small or humble contribution to your understanding of the enormous job that we have, especially when you agree to share your experience and expertise with other companies, becoming sort of like a business leader, providing that oversight and so on. So I will use slides so that we are able to focus on what we are discussing today. And that kind of a focus will give us some kind of understanding. So just to start, the issue of resilience is part of emotional intelligence. And you can see I have a very interesting photo there showing a head of it must be a woman, but I know we have men in the audience, but then it is something which is very much related to our brain. And taken from there, I would like to introduce to you the model that we are using. We are from Applied Emotional Intelligence, was born in Australia. We have a university which is our research partner. We do a lot of research on how actually people react to certain situations when they are happening. And from those research, that's where we draw a lot of information about how we react to certain situations, how we responded to certain situations. I'm part of that particular movement. In Tanzania, my company is a partner to Genos International. And in Kenya, I have my associate who is Profiles International, who actually is taking the lead in terms of introducing this very essential skill in Africa and East Africa in particular. So today we are going to have 4 main areas of exploration. And these, I'll be exploring them as we go along. So we'll start by appreciating the position of a board director. We shall also move to looking at leading with emotional intelligence. How do you evoke the competences of emotional intelligence to survive all the pressure that we normally experience as leaders? I'll touch a bit on conscious leadership because it is very much related to resilience, and then I'll go to some strategies in cultivating deliberate resilience. So that will be our topic for today. Now I want to start first by building that perspective, yeah? Leadership at the board level, what is it all about? When I was chairing quite a number of boards, I'm recruiting people to come to the board. I'll say, are you ready to join the Council of Elders? Not because you are old in terms of your age, but you have developed wisdom. You have developed some kind of emotional stability that you are able to join and provide that stewardship which is required to organization. So in short, if you look at the traditional sense of a board, it is a council of elders. These elders are independent in terms of thinking. They are not in want, their needs are being fulfilled. They are not people who are running for bonuses. They are people who are really objective, and they believe that they can take that particular role and provide guidance now to the executive management, those executive managers who are actually making things happen. So you are welcome to a council of elders. So this alone being a council of elders, it means that actually people have taken you to be a very serious person to occupy that particular seat. Now, what is the board then in its definition? We all know the board is a group of people charged with the legal, moral, primarily ensuring the company is operating properly, ensuring the corporate governance are kept. And it is actually the focal point of corporate governance system. And it is a focal point in the sense that it takes care of all the legal and the regulatory environment and make sure that the company is completely in compliance. So in this case, then it calls for people who have certain expertise, certain experience, who can do that particular job. The mandate of of boards, as we know, board of directors, they're actually charged with two very clear mandates: advisory and oversight. Now, when you talk of advisory and oversight, and this, it is oversight on legal responsibility, judiciary matters, and so on. So it calls for some set of skills that will give you that kind of personal authority, or you call it wherever, formal authority, that you'll be able to guide the executive management and sometimes guide the shareholders. Yes, some boards you are appointed by shareholders, but in most cases, we also, by sitting in the board, guided them on a number of issues. So in this case, then, it will just make you experience quite a number of interesting dynamics. Dynamics in terms of understanding the environment under which you are operating. Dynamics in terms of absorbing the pressures that come from the environment you are operating. So this mandate itself, it is again a source of, stress and a source of restlessness, which calls for very strong resilience for someone to be able to perform that. Another area of concentration, it is control of the organization performance. And we know when you are asked to control performance of an organization, sometimes you have to make tough calls. And when you are making tough calls, you are not a friend of everybody. And that can create a lot of pressure on you. Then resilience is also called about. And we know sometimes when you are doing that call of duty to someone, some people may personalize it, may make it very difficult for you. And sometimes even name calling and really create some kind of emotional turmoil in you. Then how do you become resilient and continue doing the work? But also when we are looking at the board and our role as board directors, we have to be cognizant that actually taking a board role, it is not a light decision. You have to think very seriously because it is such a heavy responsibility. It exposes you to risks of legal and financial. And sometimes we have seen some people who have been taken to police and some people who have spent some years in prison because of whatever decisions that you make at the board level. So that's where then the issue of essential skills, because your own expertise maybe in finance, expertise in legal, expertise in human resource, may not be able to protect your back. You need to have some kind of extra skills that will be able to make you to really stand firm and do your work in a way that actually you are not consumed by it. So when you come to the board director now, the board director, the way I understand, and even when I'm searching for board directors, we normally look for individuals who are willing to dedicate time and sometimes resources, because sometimes you may have an organization which is just developing. And if you look at the board pecs that are being given, they can never come near to cover the kind of emotional engagement, emotional burden, emotional labor that you carry. So we look for people who are pretty satisfied and they have time to spend and to be able to provide their services. But also we look for people who have broad range of qualities and expertise, including professional skills, management experience, recognition in the public, because we are the face of the organizations that engage us. But also, very important, we look for character. The solid character, because the character is something which somebody cannot take away from you. The character is a holy, it is something which makes you connected to yourself, connected to the people that you work with. But also we look for emotional stability, for people to be able to rise to the challenges of leadership. And when we come to the emotional stability, that's why this particular presentation, I decided to really link it with emotional intelligence and to talk about leading with emotional intelligence. Now I'm pausing here for any questions or comments after that introduction.
Thank you, Zuhura. Our audience, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat room and then we will answer. Zuhura, I'll just request you to keep going because I'm not seeing any questions, just a lot of comments right now. So I guess everyone is just soaking everything in. So then we
Okay.
can do questions in the next 10 minutes. So we allow people to put them down.
Okay. So it's interesting that I'm starting the leading with emotional intelligence. And I have a very interesting photo there, which is a bulb, but that bulb is made up of people. So meaning that actually leadership is fundamentally facilitating high performance. And when you are asked to go to a board to provide your services, actually you are being asked by the shareholders, can you facilitate high performance? Can you make people, produce according to the targets and exceed the targets? Can you make people become better than their own version? The executive management delivering beyond the expectation. So this is what is actually called for. So leading with emotional intelligence realizes that actually we leaders, we have a lot of impact on what is happening. And that's why we are saying leaders are sometimes too stretched in keeping up with paces of change in environment. Like now, nobody ever expected what we are seeing. This is the mother of all crises. So this has happened and you are serving in the board. You cannot run away. So it means you need to have very, very good set of skills that will keep you wired, keep you stay there. This makes it hard to remain connected. When you don't have that kind of ability to remain connected to yourself, connected within yourself, and then connected as a team. The first call then, it is cultivating resilience, is ability to self-manage and lead with emotional intelligence. That ability to manage yourself, to be able to lead with emotional intelligence, is what actually is the first call when you come to the subject of resilience. I'll take you through very quickly into a model that we are using as emotional intelligence coach and practitioners. We have a model, which we call it Genos Emotional Intelligence Model. And this model has 6 competences. And these 6 emotional competences are so important in terms of cultivating resilience. The first one is self-awareness, which actually enables somebody to really understand what are the triggers and what kind of issues that actually makes him tick or makes her tick. And this keep them remaining connected to themselves and remaining connected to the present moment. And if you don't have these particular skills, then you are disconnected. And when you get disconnected from your own self, it is the worst kind of disconnection that you can have, because now it spells the disconnection that you'll have with other people you engage with. The second one is awareness of others. Having that kind of empathy, empathetic relationship with other people. And when we are talking about awareness of others, as a board director, there are so many stakeholders that are looking up upon you to deliver. They are looking at your leadership. Then having awareness of what is their expectation, how are they feeling, it is very important. If you don't have that kind of awareness, then you are insensitive. You are not able to really empathize with them. The third one, it is authenticity. And this is a competence which is very hard to develop. But if you are able to develop it, it makes you become a genuine leader. It makes you a person who is not afraid to be vulnerable at a certain time. And vulnerability, it has been found to be one of the skills which actually enhances our resilience. So when you have authenticity, you are genuine, you are approachable. But if you don't have it, you are not trusted, and people find it very difficult to approach you. The fourth one, it is emotional reasoning. And this is very important for the board directors, because emotional reasoning is an ability to be able to be consultative. It is an ability to listen to your emotions of others, understanding the interest of your organization, the purpose, and being able to arrive at decision which has explored all the options. And this is very, very important for any director who is serving in any board. Then when you have this particular emotional expansive, you are not limited in terms of how you conduct yourself. The fifth one is self-management. And this is a very critical one, because this is where now the resilience comes in. And you can see people who have high level of self-management, they're also very highly resilient people. So this is the ability to be able to manage your own emotion, to create boundaries on your time, boundaries on how you relate with people. But if you don't have it, then you are temperamental, you are not really connected, and you can become quite a belligerent type of a person. The last one is positive influence. And this time around with the COVID-19, this is very important. The executive managements are looking for positive influence from their directors to empower them so that they can really work and survive through this particular crisis. If you don't have this one, you become quite indifferent. You don't care what is happening. And I have had some people who said, I care for about my board fees, and really leave the CEO and the team to really grapple without knowing the direction. So it is very important to have this particular skill. So when we go at this model, then we are able to say resilience is emotional based because it comes from how we feel. When you are feeling uncertain, normally you'll tend to make assumptions which are not based on any facts. And this is very bad, especially if you are saving at a board level. When you are stressed, you become aggressive. Even when a point which is given, which is very good, you find it is stressing, and you become quite aggressive and not thinking in a proper way. And when you have an underlying emotion, anxiety, you become reactive. You are not using linear consciousness to evaluate and to be able to come to a certain conclusion. So that if you are harboring that, it is not good for you. Then worried. If you feel worried, normally people who are very worried, they normally focus on problem. They don't focus on finding solution. They'll go around that problem, go around, and at the end of the day, they come up making a decision which is lopsided, and they'll not be able to solve the problem of the organization. And then we have the fear. Of course, with COVID-19, it is brooding a lot of fear. And fear, normally, it is manifested in blame. And if you are a board director and you are actually controlled by fear, you start blaming your colleagues, you start blaming the executive management. And with such unpleasant emotions playing in a board level, there is no good decision that will come from that particular board unless we learn how to move from unpleasant emotions to the pleasant emotion. When we move now, we have caught ourselves that actually I've been having this fear, I've been having this worry, I've been having this anxiety, and we know that we have been having it. We move quickly to become purposeful, whereas now when you become purposeful, you start engaging. You engage at a level which is very beneficial to the organization you are serving. You start feeling like you have a value that you can bring around the table. You start caring about others because you know I have a value that I can bring, and this value can add value to this organization. So your engagement with other people become very defined and become very, very resourceful. Then you start looking for information. You move away from assumption. You start now looking for reliable information so that you are able to become a solution-focused director. And you are steering your board into solution rather than focusing solely on the problem at hand. And then when you acquire that, you become a bit empowered. And when you are having a self-empowerment within yourself, you have that ability now to inspire empowerment to other people. And when you inspire empowerment to other people, they become innovative, they become creative, they become resourceful, and then you can move the organization to another level. So if you look at the science of emotion, all emotions are important, pleasant and unpleasant. When we were small, we were told, oh, you know, there are some emotions which are not good. We are reproached, you cannot be angry, but we know anger has created a lot of positive impact in the world, because when you are angry, you look for solution. So it is very important to know what kind of emotions are coming. And these emotions are rich sources of information to you. And in in a crisis environment like what we have to pay attention to how we are feeling. And when we pay attention to how we are feeling, we are able to make intentional decision, what kind of action we are going to take. And when we make intentional actions, it means we are able to function better. We are able to add value. And when you notice and you do intentional act rather than allowing your emotion to take control of you, that's when we say we are rising to resilience. You are becoming personally resilient and you are able to respond to situation in a very emotionally intelligent way. And when we say responding to a situation emotionally intelligent way, we go back to the meaning of responsibility. What does responsibility mean? Responsibility means responsibility. So it means you can choose. You can choose how to respond to certain issues. And when you make an intentional choice how to respond to these matters, you become a value-adding person. So we say the way we respond to issues and the way we look at that, the issue from the emotional perspective, we know that emotions influence our decisions. If you are not in pleasant emotion, most likely you'll make decisions that somehow will not take the organization ahead. And if you are in unpleasant emotions, your behaviors towards others will also not be very productive. And as a result, you will impact negatively on the productivity of the team that you are working with. Maybe the productivity of the board that you are serving, the productivity of the executive management will be highly impacted by your behavior. So it is very important to take stock of how we are feeling at all times and to take intentional actions on how to respond to the feelings that are coming to our mind. So I will stop there again, Faith, to call for you to see if we have any comment or questions.
Thank you so much, Zuhura. I'm so impressed just listening to you. It's unbelievable how resilience is emotionally based, and we never think about it that way. And I just have a few questions. One is a comment from Judith. She's saying, when we get appointments, we are excited about the glamour of the appointment, but the investment of time and effort determines the success of the board role, which is so true. And at this point, even as I go through this question, I just want to recognize every gentleman in this event. Karibu Sana, we are glad that you joined us. And this question is from a gentleman. He's asked two questions, so I'll just go through both of them, then you can answer. And George Walker is asking, in the issues of qualities of a good director, are there any qualities that are unique to a board of director in a public entity? I hope you got that. In the issues of qualities of a good director, are there any qualities that are unique to a board of director in a public entity? And then the second question is, as a restless person, how can you build self-management? As a restless person, how can you build self-management? So maybe you can take those two questions for now, then you can go through the rest of the presentation.
Yes, it is very interesting that George, I think I got the name right, has asked those questions, because I have had that opportunity, which is a rare opportunity, of serving in public corporate boards and also in private sector boards and not-for-profit boards. And I have gone through a round of experience. What I have discovered is a very important quality that actually you need to have when you are going to serve in a public enterprise board, or if it is a board which has government interest and other things. The political savviness is very important. The ability to lead behind the scenes, because there are so many decisions that are made in the boardroom, but the genesis of that decision being made may not be in that boardroom. It is our leadership behind the scenes that actually bring that decisions to be approved and to go ahead. So that is one quality which I'll advise for somebody who wants to go to public enterprise boards to acquire. And there is a book which has been written. It is called Political Savvy, Leading Behind the Scenes by, I think, Professor Luca or something like that. You can Google. And it is very good. It gives you all the ingredients of leading behind the scene and how you can take the back seat when the decision is made, but you are the one who has worked tirelessly, 90%, to have that decision being brought in front of the whole board and to be approved. And you, without really flickering and taking the credit out of it. So it is a skill which actually, when I'm seeking people to serve in the public enterprise and the interviews that I do, I try to look for people who have this ability to lead behind the scenes and without claiming any credit. So that is question number one, restlessness. Yeah, how do you handle it? You know, it is very interesting, and Faith, you come from psychology. We have a mind, we have a brain. And sometimes our brains become very noisy. And when it is very noisy, really, it becomes like a mumbo-jumbo jar, which is having sparkles, which are running helter-skelter everywhere. And that is actually the definition of restlessness. And when you are in that particular level, you are not able to really rise as a leader and be resilient. You have to really find some time, which we're going to go later in this particular presentation, to take care of yourself. It is like when you are boarding these jetliners and the crew comes on and say, in the event that the oxygen, the cabin pressure drops, oxygen masks will drop from the above you, pull and put, breathe normal. And if you're traveling with a child, put your oxygen mask on first before you fix your child oxygen mask. What is telling us, you cannot actually help any situation unless you have found somehow how to handle your own restlessness. Quiet your brain so that you can focus.
Zuhura, before you continue, there's another question on emotional intelligence, and I think it would be fantastic if you could take it now. So I'll just go through it. It's from Kathy Nyiha. Thank you very much for this very informative session. My question is, are emotional intelligence skills the same for both male and female directors, given our different psychological makeup? That's a good question. And as you think about that question, there's someone who's kindly requesting for you to indicate the book and author that you mentioned here on the session. So I think that would be a good question for you to answer. Then we can move on.
Okay. Yeah, the emotional intelligence, we say each one of us, we are born with a level of EQ. Yeah. And that level of EQ that we have from our birth, which is wired into our DNA, normally can also be developed. And us as emotional intelligence coaches, we do emotional intelligence assessment for both men and women. I can say we have not found a very significant departure in terms of how they reflect EQ. It is just a matter of being aware, being present, and being in touch with your emotions. But saying that, I must say also, there is a difference on how lady directors think and how male directors think. And when you have that kind of diversity in the board, it creates a very good dynamic in terms of how people arrive at a decision. For example, you find most of the lead directors are quite intuitive. Intuitive, it means they have this sixth sense, which is very attuned to try to say something is not right. Most of the male, they have black and white kind of thinking, straight line thinking. And when it is combined with the feminism, which actually also men can develop feminism, also women can develop masculinity. But when it is combined now with that kind of intuitive thinking and this kind of a linear black and white thinking, it creates some kind of dynamic. And if you are sitting, like I have an experience as board chairman, when I'm sitting, I'm leading a board, it is very interesting to see how that play. And when I want to call, I know exactly if I call lead director sitting at a certain corner, I'm going to get a certain perspective. And if I complement it with a gentleman, then that perspective is a whole. And then I draw a conclusion out of the two perspectives. So it is a very good question. We don't have much time to explore it, but I hope I have answered it. The second one, the book that I mentioned very quickly, I may not remember the first name of the guy, but it is called Political Savvy ... Leading Behind the Scenes. And it is by Professor Luca. The first name I have forgotten, but I'm sure if you Google it, you'll be able to find it. Very, very important book. Faith?
I think you can go ahead with your presentation now, then we can take the other questions towards the end. Just because of time. Yeah.
Okay. Again, we have a brain as a picture there when we are talking about conscious leadership. The conscious director, I wanted to start it with the conscious director because it's all about how you are projecting yourself. I remember an author who has written a very good book called Leadership Wisdom by Robin Sharma. He's talking about leadership in behavior. It is not the title that you hold. Actually, how you become respected as a director, it is not because you are a director, it is your behavior. So the first thing that a conscious director, if you are invited to serve in a board, you must have a deep sense of why. Why am I going there? Because we have seen people say, oh, no, I'm sitting in that board, I'm sitting in that board, the glamour of it. But you must have that kind of a deep why. That deep why is a reservoir for personal resilience, because it means you'll be ready to confront anything, any challenge that's coming your way. But if you don't have a deep why, then it is very difficult for you to rise to the challenge. Then the second thing is understanding the values that inform your leadership, hence able to lead assertively. When you know your values, set of values that underpin your leadership, you become very powerful. So a conscious director has this understanding and appreciation. And the third one is to draw strength from your personal authority, because when you are appointed, you are given formal authority as a board director, but that alone will not see you successful. You need to bring in some other unique authorities that people cannot take away from you. For example, emotional authority. There are people who are very good in that create that influence, which inspire people to be able to move forward. There are people who have physical authority. They have this kind of presence that normally inspires and energizes. If you have it, know how to use it, and so on. So we have quite a number of authorities that we can bring with us into the board and make us unique and conscious in our board roles. A conscious director is aware, has that awareness of the contribution the organization makes in the society. When I'm looking for board directors, normally I get very impressed if some people come and say, we understand where you are going. What is your 10 years plan, and so on. So they have that sense of what the organization can do. They have wisdom of balancing and managing stakeholders' expectation in the best interest of the organization. They are open, they are curious, and they are deeply interested in learning. And this is a quality that normally we look. If you are not open, you are not curious to learn, don't take any board directorship role. Because when you are leading any business, you must understand it. You must understand the business model, how money is made, what risks are there, and all. You have to have 360-degree understanding of that particular business. Then they are also able to embrace state of radical responsibility, that the bucket stops here mindset, that if anything goes bad in that particular organization, I'm responsible as a director, and that is very important. And when you know that, then your resilience levels are also very important, especially when it comes to a point where you have to call the shots. And I can tell you, with my experience of more than 25 years in boards, there are sometimes you are required to call shots. And if you don't know that responsibility stops on you, then it is a problem. For example, I have a case where a chief executive calls me and say, I instructed you. I say, wait a minute, you don't instruct me. I'm the one who instructs you. You understand? So it is very important, because if you don't have that kind of responsibility, it is very easy for the executive management to put you in their pockets. So it is very important to develop that. You have authentic relationship with your feelings. Authenticity is very important, as we have talked. And if you don't have authentic relationship, you are not able to be resilient. Now, when you have a board which is made up of conscious directors, then you have what we are referring to conscious leadership at the board level. And the conscious leadership at the board level is interesting because it focuses on developing collective wisdom as a group. And this collective wisdom enables people to see beyond the obvious. And now, in the COVID-19 we are living in, we need to see beyond the obvious, because there's so much that is going on. You cannot depend on one person. It has to be beyond an individual. You have to create that dynamic where people are able to converse and come to a point where they have come to a collective wisdom. And such wisdom then is able to help us to oversee a strategy or to review a strategy, because now most of the business strategies have been thrown, useless because of the COVID-19. When you don't have that consciousness at the board, you'll not be able to really rewire the strategy and oversee the implementation of that strategy. So the collective wisdom is very critical for organizational resilience. Now I have moved from personal resilience to organizational resilience, because organizations are heuristic individual. They cannot take care of themselves, but the director's resilience is the one which is passed to become organizational resilience. So you can see the impact that we have to the organizations that we lead. So the conscious leadership then is concerned about what the organization can deliver, uniquely can deliver today and the future. So such kind of awareness is very important in making sure that the organization is moving forward. So even within crisis, that leadership is very focused in terms of understanding the purpose, in responding to evolving expectation of its shareholders, expectations of the customers. It is able to engage the executive management very well. Instead of charging and being belligerent to the executive management, they are able to engage them to the way that they are able to show their professionalism. And by being able to engage the executive management, they are able to inspire innovation, creativity in the people that are leading the business. And by doing so, they make the organization have agility in terms of work approach, people management, technology, and other things. Now, if you look at the COVID-19, it has actually redefined human resource management, how we are going to arrange our people to produce value. So it is very important for the board directors to have that kind of consciousness, which will take them to another level. And when you are looking at that, then we are saying with the consciousness that they are able to create a process which will ensure a systemic change. And under COVID-19, we need to embrace systemic change by looking at the strategy. Is the strategy working for us now? By looking at the culture of the organization. We had a culture which now under the COVID-19, it is not really working for us very well. The kind of leadership that you will require. Because if you look at what is happening, the restlessness that has been engulfing our workforce, the changing, the shifting sand under our feet all the time. So it calls for very strong, resilient leaders to take us to the systemic change, which we are going to see across the world, that organizations that are going to survive, they are going to be the organization, not the ones that are strongest. They are the organizations which have board leadership, which is resilience, and board leadership, which has been able to build resilience within the operations of the organization. So I'm pausing again to listen to your comment. If there is any question, rejoiner, or any panelist who wants to say something.
Thank you very much. I have a question here that I would like you to answer. And this is from Carol Munune. And she's asking, I'm curious, does the political savviness, the one that you talked about, let me just take that again. I'm curious, does the political savviness aspect then explain why many women run away from public company boards and prefer private or NGO boards? I hope you got the question.
I didn't know that there is a tendency of women running away. You see, in the boardrooms, I normally talk about shredding machine, which is invisible. There is a lot of pressure in the boardroom. And when you go to the boardrooms of the public sector, the pressure is enormous. And if you have not developed the resilience, deliberate resilience, I love your topic, you will not be able to survive. And I can tell you, I have had experiences that are very telling, and sometimes becoming a loner in such public boards, because there are situations that call for really strength and thick skin to survive. And when you have that kind of sense of why you are there and the interest of the people you are representing, you are able to stand your ground. You are able to even call the shots and say, please, I want it to be recorded that I dissented this, or I want to be recorded that I said this one does not make business sense. Although you are taking a decision and I'm a loner, this is my stance. And sometimes you walk away. Yes, it is true, the pressure is very high and they prefer. And why? We have corporate governance that actually govern how we do our board duties. When you go to the public service boards, sometimes because of the political pressure, And you find even the person who is exerting that political pressure is also under immense pressure, even higher than the board director's pressure, really becoming a victim. So you find many people prefer to go to the private sector boss. But I'm encouraging ladies who are directors, who are aspiring to become directors, to develop that political savviness ability to survive in such environment. If I survived, then it means many women can also survive.
I have another question here. Thank you for answering that. And it's from Christine. She's asking, what is the most basic training a board member can take to be able to join a board? So I don't know if you have any ideas in that regard.
Okay. First of all, there are two sides of training. You have to have the hard side of training, which is all to do about corporate governance and the role that you're supposed to fulfill. Because we all understand how corporate governance work, making sure that actually the organization is operating within the legal premises that it's supposed to operate, the compliance issues. But also you have to have industry-specific training. Because if you go to the telecoms or you go to maybe media, I was serving in the media board for some time, and it was a very hot seat that I was occupying, because you know, independent media in our environment in East Africa, sometimes it is not loved by the people who hold political power. So you can imagine the immense pressure that I had. So I had to study the media industry very, very intensely to understand it. So that is one kind of training that you need: industrial knowledge, corporate governance knowledge. Then another knowledge that you need to have, it is the essential skills, the skills that we're handling today: how to really manage yourself, how to really to self-control, and how to rise to the occasion, how to lead, because leadership demands courage, and courage is not absence of fear. Courage is just your orientation and understanding of the purpose that you are serving. And when I was serving in the media house, actually that is what defined me, because I had that courage to face each day, not because I really loved the job, but because I know the importance of independent media in our environment in terms of pushing forward the democratic process and also creating national prosperity. So if you have your why very well, and that why you cannot get it in school, you have really to invest yourself to find these soft skills. Talk to also people who have served in boards for a number of years. They'll give you very, very impeccable wisdom, sterling wisdom that you can carry. So for me, when I was moving in the journey of serving in a number of boards, I was supported by 5 mentors. Believe you me, some of them are living in upstate New York, others in Canada, some in Tanzania, and I have mentor in Kenya. So you can imagine the pressure that you undergo. You need mentors, to surround yourself with mentors to make you stay in balance. That George who asked about restlessness, sometimes that restlessness, I used to transfer it to my mentors. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Zuhura. We'll just take 2 more questions, then we can come to a close because it's almost the top of the hour. So
Yes.
there's a question from Christine here, and she's asking, is it time for some organizations to invest differently instead of money sitting in the bank? How can one get the board members to think differently? I'll ask you the other question if you don't mind, then you can handle both. That's okay?
Yes.
Okay. So the second question is from Lucille. She's saying, excellent presentation. I love how she's covering the elements of having the right character for a board. Is there an inspiring book she can recommend us to read on emotional intelligence, more so in regards to leadership? So the question here is recommendations for books on emotional intelligence and leadership. And the other question is, should organizations invest differently instead of money sitting in the bank? How can one get the board members to think differently?
That's why I request even Catherine, my friend, to look at the first question. But the way we are talking about investing differently, with COVID-19, the world is not going to be the same. We are going to see a revelation of something new. which is coming. And that's something new which is coming. We have not been able to put our perspective to know how will it look like. But again, when you have apocalypse, which we say it's something new coming from the Greek philosophy, it means it is calling for the board of directors to really up their game, to understand how can they make a special contribution to the world which is unfolding. And that special contribution cannot be actually made without having very critical analysis, because when you are talking about investing differently, you have to look at where are you putting the shareholders' money, and will it give you the return that you want? But also you're also looking at what about the social good will that money bring? And when you are talking about the social good with the COVID-19 pandemic, there is a lot that is coming to question a number of business, how we are doing business, how we are taking care of people, how we are investing in the public infrastructure. We have had many countries where the health system was completely overwhelmed, and so on and so forth. So these are the questions that are coming. So for the directors, what I'm saying, for anybody who is serving in the directorship level, we have been thrown a very big responsibility on our shoulders to think differently, to invest ourselves into terms of learning, to become more curious, and to know our unfolding world is going to demand something very new. And Catherine, do you want to add? Catherine Moss.
Yeah, Zuhura, I just want to support what you are saying. The thing about COVID-19 is that there is really no blueprint that any of us is working with. We are all testing all concepts, testing all strategies to see whether they will work. And so it just requires us reaching deep into ourselves and asking ourselves, do we believe what we want to do is the right thing? Normally, that small voice within, that emotional intelligence will actually tell us whether the action we are trying to do is really the right one. I think that is what I can add now, Zuhura.
Okay, the expansiveness, the consultative, looking for options and digging deeper, curiosity. Yeah, intellectual curiosity is very important for any board member. So another thing which I want about books, I will very much encourage most of the ladies who are listening to me and the gentlemen to invest time, to invest in emotional intelligence. We are running such courses in East Africa, and we have our hashtag. You can contact us. We can do that. But one of the books which is celebrated in the emotional intelligence world, because the emotional intelligence branch started many years ago in the 1950s, but it was until when Daniel Goleman wrote the famous book, Emotional Intelligence, in the 1990s, and relating the emotions with performance and convincing the business world, actually EQ is important. Previous to that, we used to focus on IQ, but then it was discovered EQ is equally important in moving the businesses ahead. So if you get that one book, it is very good. But also you can look at Harvard Business Review. They do a lot of emotional intelligence. I can share maybe some of the summaries of the world leadership books where we have very interest in emotional intelligence. And then we have Daniel Goleman in that particular summary, also exploring further about the relationship of performance, resilience, and emotional intelligence. There are a lot of books. And the Genos Emotional Intelligence Model is based on many researches that have been done. And each year we validate some of these things. Catherine, I hope I have satisfied your curiosity. Can I move forward now?
Yes,
okay.
Please.
Okay.
So
it was Christine.
we have.
No, Christine. I
Yes.
said Catherine.
Yes.
Christine is the one who asked the question. Sorry. Yes, we have a few minutes now.
Yeah,
so,
we have. It's actually 5 o'clock, but we still have a few questions. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just read through 1 or 2 and you can answer in like a minute, and then now we can close.
Okay.
Because yes, Catherine?
Can I suggest that we let Zuhura finish her presentation? But
Sure.
I'm going to make a very special request to Zuhura now, that we have part 2 of this session.
I agree.
Okay. That is fine.
Thank you.
Okay. So
So
you want me
maybe
to
just
continue?
go ahead.
Yeah, very
like Catherine
quickly.
has requested.
Yes, we are talking about personal resilience, and it is defined as individual ability to adapt to stress and adversity. It is capacity to bounce back from a negative experience. And this capacity, there are people who have more of it than other people, as I said. And we say resilience is not absence of distress or difficulty. Resilience is ability to adapt and grow following the adversity, and adversities are there. And we say when you find people complaining about not having resilience, there are some kind of phrases that we hear, like she cannot handle the pressure, he falls when the going gets tough, she withdraws when we need her most. When you find people have been thrown off balance, that's what you will hear people talking about. And you can see it even in the boardroom, where you have some people becoming quite, not adding so much value because of lack of the resilience. Highly resilient people do experience negative emotions, and also they have thoughts, but they are optimistic people. And in most cases, they are able to balance their negative emotions. They are able to move away from negativity to positivity very fast. But how can they do that? There are 5 competences that we say can help you to develop resilience. Self-awareness, understanding where your triggers are coming, it's very important. At times of crisis, self-awareness helps leaders to become more intentional in their action, more intentional in what they invest in. Self-discipline is very important, and self-discipline is defined as ability to be able to discipline how you're thinking, to handle your thought process. And Mahatma Gandhi had put it, a man is but a product of his thoughts. What he thinks he becomes. So resilience is very much drawn from how, and that's why I said it is emotional based. At times of crisis, resilience is born out of disciplined thoughts, disciplined action, and disciplined execution. And this is very important for board directors, because if you don't have disciplined thoughts, then you end up not making contributing a lot of value where you are saving. And when you come to self-management is another competence. It is ability to manage your mood and emotions and channel your behavior in such a way that actually you create positivity around the people that you are working with. And that kind of positivity then enables you to steer your organization to deliver the services that are expected by its stakeholder. Empathy, I cannot overemphasize this. This is a very important resilience skill, because empathy is knowing where others are coming from. As board directors, we have that formal responsibility, structural responsibility, and the authority. If we don't know where our executive managements are coming from, we are not able to support them. So for us to remain resilient, it is when we move from our comfort zone, provide compassion, and we say compassion is medicine. So it is very important to know where the stresses of your chief executive coming from, your executive management, and genuinely supporting them to become the best version they can be, and then you can move the organization forward. Another skill is authenticity, is about being openly expressing oneself, honoring commitment, being able to understand that I'm here for a reason. When you have those, you are able to become a bit resilient. But there are some approaches that you can use. One of the approach which is very important in terms of cultivating deliberate resilience is mindfulness. Mindfulness is defined as systematic cultivation of awareness, which includes self-awareness, being intentional, non-judgmental, being in the present moment. We struggle a lot as human beings. We try to live in the past and in the future at the same time, but the present moment actually passes us. So mindfulness is being in the here and now, being present, being mindful, being a keen listener, being able to support others in an empathetic way. The mindfulness is important for leaders, because no matter what you are doing, you are either moving through a continuum of being mindful or mindfulness. So it is very important, because the studies have shown mindfulness, if is practiced by leaders, is able to create great improvement in terms of competence of the people that we are leading, in terms of creativity, especially now, like Christine has asked, can we think differently? we need creativity, psychological well-being. When you have people who have better psychological well-being, they are able to function much better. Health and relationship are improved with mindfulness. In terms of physical approach, environmental approach, I'll go very quickly. Leaders, as we know, they work in high demand and they are thrown into stressful situations in most cases. And this can cause them to demonstrate behaviors that are not congruent to the organizational interest. Leaders' emotions are contagious. And the board, if you have a board which is belligerent, a board which is not authentic, the board which is not conscious, actually it percolates in all levels of the organization. And that organization will not be able to rise from the crisis. So it is very important to monitor how we are demonstrating ourselves, how we are experienced by the people we are leading. So leadership involves considerable level of emotional labor. The emotional labor which I'm talking about is so heavy, particularly empathizing and demonstrating empathy. You know, when you demonstrate empathy, it is your energy which is being drawn by the other party. So it is exhausting, and sometimes it depletes your mental resource. So you get what we refer to in psychology as compassion fatigue. So if you are not able to go back and re-energize, then you will not be resilient. Empathy doesn't just drain your energy, but also your cognitive resources. So sometimes you are not thinking in a straight way because you are overwhelmed. So it is very important to know when you have mental and emotional exhaustion, to distance yourself and to make sure that you are taking environmental approaches that will help you. One of them is sleeping well, making sure that you sleep well, participating in exercises, balanced breakfast and balanced meal, set priorities of your day, avoid back-to-back meetings so that you are not depleted. And in the afternoon, structure your breaks, take lunch away from your desk, limit caffeine time, limit alcohol intake, reflection and preparation time for afternoon. Reflection is very important because you are taking care of your own mental health. And in disconnecting from work, unplugging. Yesterday we were talking about unplugging. You must have time, life outside your board directorship level. Like for example, yesterday I had bad news that we lost one employee in the board which I'm presiding. And it stressed me a lot because very young, 35 years old, small children. And I disconnected immediately. I took a walk outside. So it is very important to do that. Participate in exercise, stretching, time with friends and family is very important. Balanced dinner, finish before 7 o'clock so that you sleep and your body takes care of rejuvenating your brain rather than concentrating your digestive system. And then cool down time, especially before you go to bed. Stop all your social media, mute everything, make sure that you reduce your screen time. And it is very bad. If any one of you has a TV set in your bedroom, please remove it. It is killing you. It is very important to have that kind of environment. Then gratitude, reflection, relaxation. Look, count on your blessings at the end of the day. Even when you have a very tough board meeting, stop and breathe and count what went well and relive that kind of a moment, which will give you more energy. I want to come to a summary now, which we are saying we have covered quite a lot. Your role as a director requires you to practice conscious leadership. We spent some time there. Conscious leadership is born out of purpose. You now have to know your deep why, personal values. You have to have your EAI skills, all helping you to cultivate resilience during crisis. And also we covered driving systemic changes, especially amidst COVID-19, calls for leaders who are highly resilient. We are called to even increase our level of resilience. And resilience can be developed through self-awareness, self-discipline, self-management, empathy, and authenticity. So resilience is learned. Resilience is a skill which you can build and you can cultivate. And I love the topic name because cultivating deliberate. You can be deliberate, you can be intentional and build that kind of resilience. To enhance resilience, one needs to be mindful in whatever you are doing, be intentional, and remember to take care of yourself. And lastly, I want to thank you very much. All this is coming from Emotional Intelligence, which is part of East Africa Challenge, Resilience Challenge, and you can follow us on Resilient East Africa Challenge. And I want to thank everyone who has listened to me. And I love the questions which were posed. If there are more, maybe our next session will be able to answer them. Faith, back to you.
Thank you, Zuhura. Thank you so much for not only sharing just important facts and insightful details, but sharing your life and experiences. That has stuck with me, and we appreciate you for that. We have a few questions, and I know the ladies and gentlemen will kill me if we don't take them. So I'll just go through them quickly. Maybe you can note them down and just answer them briefly in a minute or two, and we can close. Yeah, so the first one is that people are asking if they can get this presentation. So maybe you can comment on that as you go through. We have so many people giving compliments about how amazing the presentation has been. Now into some of the questions. One find mentors to hold our hands is that men, all boxes give to men in order for them to cultivate the deliberate resilience necessary for them as individuals and as organizational leaders to navigate through this crisis. That's by a man, and concern about them thinking in boxes. The next question is, what emotional intelligence should one master, particularly in a public sector board, before you dissent on sensitive decisions with divergent views from board members?
I'm not hearing those questions very well.
How will COVID... Okay, let me take them again. Did you hear the first one on mentors and how to get them?
No, I didn't hear.
So sorry about that. So the first question is, how can one find mentors to hold our hands like you did? Are there links or organizations to share, especially this time when everything is changing so fast?
Okay.
Yeah, the second question. Yeah, then second question. It is said that men think in boxes. With COVID-19, all boxes. Yes,
men
boxes.
Think boxes,
Yes,
they
in
must be
boxes.
very big.
So they're saying with COVID-19, boxes have been thrown out of the window. What advice would you give to men in order for them to cultivate the deliberate resilience necessary for them as individuals and as organizational leaders to navigate through this crisis? Did you get that?
Yes,
Yeah?
I got it. Yes, I got it.
Okay, the next question, what emotional intelligence should one master, particularly in a public sector board, before you dissent on sensitive decisions with divergent views from board members? And yes, and someone else is asking, how will COVID-19 change management strategies, especially for employees?
That one is very HR question.
Yeah, and finally, the final question, board directors will need to think differently. However, in public boards, it might be difficult as you find they have to comply with directives from regulatory authorities, as well as other political interferences. What is your take? Did you get that one?
Yes, I got it. I don't know how to answer those questions within a very short time, but it is interesting.
Okay.
The presentation, the question on presentation, I will actually communicate with my colleagues in Nairobi to see if we can have the presentation shared. But also I know this is being recorded and people will be able to have the presentations that we have shared today. Secondly, there is the question of finding mentors. I can say I'm a product of mentors, and I celebrate mentorship. And we have not done so much in this part of the world, because if you go to the Western countries, mentorship is so important, because mentors are not only holding your hand, they also become your promoters in the high corridors that you cannot be. So when you don't have mentors, nobody is speaking on your behalf where you cannot be present. So mentors are not there only to hold, but also to promote you, to make you grow. But also they dare you. Yeah. Sometimes, you know, you say, I cannot fly, but your mentor sees that you have a pair of wings, but you have not recognized you have those wings. Then they push you. And when they push you, realize, oh my God, I didn't know that I was going to be able to do this. So in terms of having links which are recognized as mentors link in East Africa, really I don't have, but you have given me a challenge where I have to look at. But there are some two things that I want to share. When you are looking for a mentor, try to look for somebody who is different, is not like you. You need to have someone who can challenge your thinking. You need to have someone who can push you. So in most cases, we look for people who actually are our mirror. No, look for someone who is quite different. And that's why I talked about me having mentors across the globe, because I look for those people and I request them. But also mentorship can be passive and active. So you may have an active mentor that you talk to from time to time, but also I can have Catherine Musakali as my passive mentor, watching what she's doing, and she becomes my role model. So you have that dimension of mentorship. But for sure, what I'll do, I'll look for links that exist in this part of the world where we can get mentors. But within the fraternity of the emotional intelligence practitioners, I believe we have quite a number of mentors who can hold hands. So it is just a matter of reaching out and trying to see how we can organize it. Men think in boxes. There must be very big boxes around. And now they are being called. Are you able to hear me? Hello?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we can hear you.
People have been so quiet, I thought maybe I'm not heard. So I'm saying these boxes, which I said they're lined up somewhere, and men have these boxes, and they're now supposed to be thinking differently. What I would like to say, and maybe the men will not really resonate with it very well. Men have problem. They never allow themselves to be vulnerable. Being vulnerable for men, it's very difficult, but we learn a lot when we become vulnerable. What I mean by being vulnerable is that ability to say, you know what, I don't know. And I know, you know better than I. So that one gives you ability to become curious. But if you are not vulnerable, that is one of the emotional intelligence skills that men need to cultivate. They need to become vulnerable. Then the second emotional intelligence skill they need to cultivate, it is also to cultivate this humility, because the ego which drives men is so high, and sometimes it gets them to the wrong side and mar their thinking, mar their decision. So it is very important to be your own ego checker and being able to lower it. The third one, which is very, very important, it is authenticity, because sometimes we get killed by pretending that everything is okay, and we are not able to really language what is going on around us. And with COVID-19, what I'm finding, many men are very restless because they are not used, even when they stay working from home, they are not really attuned to the environment of working from home and the environment of sitting somewhere where they don't go anywhere. So it is important to learn that kind of, those kind of skills. And the last one, it is the listening without judging. Because the moment you see colors in the people who are asking questions, the moment you see gender, then it stops you from learning. It stops you from becoming awesome. So it is very important to cultivate that listening skill, which is non-judgmental listening. When I joined the board, which is of Saved in Kenya, and I remember my first 2 group board meetings, I had someone who was finishing my sentences all the time when I'm speaking, because immediately he decided to judge me, saying that, yeah, you know, she's a lady and maybe she may not know this and that. Then I had to be very assertive in one tea time, and I said, Mr. So-and-so, I know what I'm talking about and I have ability to think it through. Please don't finish my sentences from it. So you find many men, they are very judgmental in terms of how they relate. And in some places where I have served as a leader, I've been asked questions, what are you doing here? Then I say, you'll soon find out. So that kind of judgment. I have answered that one. I don't know whether I have satisfied. Then we have the public sector board. This has been very big questions about what kind of emotional intelligence. Actually, all the 6 competences are so important. You the ability to survive in this environment. I can tell you it is not an easy environment. It is an environment which demands your ability to hear what has not been said. And that ability to hear what has not been said, it is called emotional posture. Being able to lean in and hear words which have not been spoken before a decision is made. And that is very, very important. And secondly, you have to know how to identify where the power resides and how to seduce that power. And one of the emotional intelligence skill is seduction power. I'm not taking to seduction in the terms of sexual manipulation, but seduction in terms of moving people from where they are by the power of your emotional stability and your physical presence. So it is very important to have such skills. But then when the pressure is so high, some of those skills can really be called to test. So I don't have a particular advice really, because I don't know where the pressure might come from. So it may be very difficult. But then you ask yourself, 5 years down the line, will I be able to look in the eyes of, like for me, my age, my grandson, and really stand, defend the decisions that I am making today? That is really the compass which actually guide me in the public sector boards. I have an example where we were doing some kind of a debt swap, and I'm told, you know, it is all right. After all, this is a public company and this one is another public company. We can just do a swapping by swapping the bills and the debt that this other company is holding. And that debt is about $165 million US. Then I said, Mr. Chairman, I don't think this is the right decisions to make, because in my calculation, I realized for them to be able to repay through this method, it will take us 88 years. He said, it's okay, we'll be here. Then I said, but does it make business sense? Then of course that did not pass. Oh my God, I invited so many enemies and I survived a very tough time around that particular period. So you can imagine, it is a tough call. Then another question was management strategies. That is quite a management speak. What I said with COVID-19, it is going to really make leaders, business leaders, rise to rethink a lot around how workforces are managed, a lot around HR policies and procedures, because we have seen it has thrown us completely out of balance. So what I'm anticipating is much more investment in terms of creativity, in terms of innovation, to see how we can run companies in such an agile way without incurring so many costs. And the last one, I can't remember it very well, the last one, Faith.
I can read it for you again.
Yeah.
It was saying board directors will need to think differently. However, in public boards, it might be difficult, as you find they have to comply with directives from regulatory authorities, as well as other political interferences. What is your take?
My take is first to have very, very deep industrial knowledge that will give you ability to build a case, because I believe these things are not cast on stone. But also I believe human beings, they have this intellect, which if you present something which makes sense and it has a very strong business case, you can win the day. And I have seen that happening in the public sector arena where I was serving, where a case is built. And sometimes I used to spend even hours of the night to write that kind of a case, to move the board into a different direction. So it is just more about deep curiosity, intellectual curiosity, upping your emotional intelligence. For example, if you identify within that board of the public sector, there is an opinion shaper. That opinion shaper is very important. Make a friend, become a friend to that opinion shaper. Come with a very intelligent solution to a situation that you know if you present it yourself, it won't see the light of the day. Why don't you empower this opinion shaper? Write it, one pager, go behind the scene, get agreement. Even in the private sector board where I used to sit, if I want decisions to move in certain direction, I normally used to have 75% of the decision made outside the board. When I come there, I have already shifted the mind of the people who are in that board. So in the public sector, first is to know who is an opinion shaper, who has a deeper voice in that particular board, how you manipulate them. That's where the seduction comes in. You seduce them into a way of thinking. And when it's presenting, sometimes they could say, it is Faith who understands how this concept works better, and invite you to present it. And when you get that moment, remember to thank and say, this originated from you. Actually, you created it. And that's why I said, leading behind the scene, you don't take credit. You leave that, glamour, go to somebody else. But as long as the best interests of that organization are upheld, it is not bad to do that. And it is not unchristian, or it is not breaking any scripture rules. It is just you safeguarding that interest of that organization by building a case and selling it to people who have a deeper voice in that particular public sector. I think I have done justice to that question.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for taking our many questions.
Okay.
We thank you for everyone who's listening and has shared all these questions. And thank you, Zuhura, for answering all of them. It was a great pleasure meeting you. We hope once the outside opens, we'll get to have you as well on our live sessions as well.
Okay.
And talking about our live sessions, I just want to call in now our founder, Nkatha Moria, and I just want her to take us through just some of our announcements as she gives us the closing remarks. Nkatha, are you there?
I am indeed. Thank you so much, Faith. Really very grateful indeed to have each and every one of you, and thank you for just keeping with us at this time. Zuhura, we really appreciate you. I look forward to inviting you to be my mentor on how to use your voice so softly, so strongly, so powerfully, so dynamically to deliver that message. We look forward also to interacting with you again, as our chair, Catherine, has asked you to, that we may continue engaging on this really important topic, not only for this COVID-19 period, but even going forward in our leadership, particularly on board. So thank you once again for making this time. My key takeout really is just that aspect you mentioned about curiosity and a commitment to deep learning, which incidentally is one of the foundations of emotional intelligence, which can be learned, which can be cultivated, and it can be grown as compared to perhaps IQ. So I trust that we have all taken a key takeout, and we look forward to hearing from you on our different forums about what you have taken out of this talk and what you will be practicing going forward. And even just mentioning about that commitment to learning, we appreciate each and every one of you who made time, because it shows a commitment to learning, and we look forward even to having you on our other programs. I remember Christine asked, what is some of the basic training that you can get as a director. And incidentally, here on the Women on Boards, we do have a corporate governance training, which is really a foundational training for any person who wants to be on a board. And we have a program actually running on the 1st to the 5th of June, 2020. And you can actually register with us. You can get in touch with the Secretariat and take that training. You can contact us not only about that training, but also our other programs. We have a number coming up. There's one going to be on board profiling and personal positioning, a workshop in July 2020. We still have more webinars coming up for you in May and in June. So when you hear about them, please do sign up, but also invite others, because we want to learn together, we want to grow together and ensure that we are more and more effective on the boards that we are on. For those who are asking how they can join the network, you can contact us, drop us a line on info@womenonboardskenya.co.ke. We will get you the information as to how to join. There is a simple form you need to fill out. There is a membership fee, a small membership fee and an annual subscription fee. And you can engage with us in that way. And there are very many benefits. I won't speak about them all now because you've been patient enough to stay. But please do get in touch with us. You can also find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and you can engage with us there, and we'll be happy to share the joining information with you. One last thing on mentorship. Zuhura, thank you for just highlighting how very important it is to have mentors and supporters in this journey of leadership. At Women on Boards Network Kenya, we also have mentorship programs. We are able to link you with a mentor in a chosen area or chosen field. We have specific programs. One, a global leadership mentorship program, which we run with lead women in Malaysia, and you can even get a global mentor. Zuhura mentioned that she had a mentor from across the seas, and it was very useful to her, and it's the same that we do with the Global Women on Boards program with lead women, and also our local programs also have a mentorship component. So please feel free to continue interacting with us in that way. Finally, my appreciation to each one of you. Thank you, keep well. God bless you for the rest of the weekend and the week ahead. Thank you, Faith, for leading us so well. Thank you, Catherine, our chair, for just being here, starting us off well. Zuhura, we look forward to seeing you again soon. And thank you for you as you have participated, asked questions. I know that there may be one or two questions or comments that have not been attended to. We will be able to respond to them, send them out on email and other media so that you can have those responses. But with that, I'll just hand back to Faith and wish you a very pleasant weekend ahead. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm totally blown away. It's one of those sessions that leaves you with your notebook reviewing everything you've learned. Thank you very much again.
Okay.
Zuhura, for coming today and just taking your time and, you know, just sharing your experiences and giving us that you to just wait with us. We apologize that it was well worth it, and we'll most definitely make sure Miss Muro is able to come again. So Hannah, are you ready to take the picture? Because we are closing now. Thank you very much for staying past the hour. Okay. We appreciate that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, so we just keep a consistent smile so that pictures can be taken at the end of the event.
Okay.